John, thank you for taking time out to speak with me. I know you guys at Ferring Law Firm, one of the top veterans law firms in the nation, have been up to a lot over the last 3 months. But it's interesting because you and I were just speaking about this and having contingency plans in the military. But when COVID first hit, what was the experience that you guys had, and how did you approach this as a leader?
Well, when we saw it hit, and the first thing is, okay, approach with caution, right? We don't freak out about everything. I mean, most of my staff are former military, and so we don't panic. But as we saw things developing, we knew that we had a Q2 rock to make sure that that we could go remote. And so all of a sudden it was like, wow, we got to get this done quicker. So, being able to go 100% remote, it costs us more than we wanted. We had some systems we didn't have in place, but it didn't, we didn't say, oh, we're going to adjust our goals now. The goals stayed the same. The scorecards stayed the same. And in fact, yesterday we did our state of the organization at the end of the quarter. And, we surpassed we have about 15 things on our scorecard. We blew it out of the water on 5 of our metrics. So, for us, it was business as usual, which is, hey, we love the challenge and we are going to adjust. Our job is to represent our clients and to get the best possible results from. And one of the ways you do that is you use these things to your advantage. Hey, you have more time. Great. That means more time to talk to your client, more time to prepare for hearings, more time to develop your team. Mike, I think about, all the stuff that you guys do at CRISP, and there's always another project. There's always the next thing. COVID kind of brought us back into that mindset of in the military, when you're out on a patrol and you go into a patrol base, you set this triangle-shaped patrol base. And what you do is you set out security as your first priority of work. And you start digging in your fighting positions. You set up your sectors of fire, and you're waiting for the enemy. And while you're there, you continue to dig in and fortify your fighting position. And if you're there for more than 24 hours, you're going to have foxholes, and then you're going to fortify them with sandbags. And so the thing is, you have to keep improving that fighting position. It doesn't matter what's going on the outside. I mean, yeah, if the enemy starts shooting, you shoot back, and sometimes it's all hands on deck when it's really bad. But the thought is, there's always some way to improve your position. Improve that fighting position, improve your company, and you can't waste time. You have to set those priorities of work, and you have to keep moving forward. Otherwise, someone else is going to come out there and crush you. And where do you want to take the risk? Do you want to take the risk in, not, in staying safe and not moving forward and saving your cash and firing people and decompressing, and maybe that's going to save you? Or if you do that, are you taking on a bigger risk of someone else coming along and enveloping you because they're going to push forward? They're going to be hungrier. They're going to be tougher. They're going to be more resilient. They're going to plan better. They're not going to go quietly into the night, right? They're going to be ready. And so kind of like what you guys at CRISP do, and a lot of the law firms in the CRISP look at is, this is a great opportunity, right? Like Warren Buffett said, right? When people are fearful, that's when we're greedy. And when people are greedy, that's when we're fearful.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've long since said that there's like peacetime CEOs and wartime CEOs. And, obviously COVID is not, it's obviously not a good thing from a public health standpoint, but there are, when we talk about it from a business standpoint, I imagine that, when this first broke, I don't know necessarily you woke up with a grin on your face, but you definitely were ready. And this was something you viewed as an opportunity to go on the offensive. What were some of the opportunities that you saw in terms of just ways to just grow the business and expand?
Yeah, so in any time that there's adversity, right, it's going to reveal character. And we love that, because we need, as a growing organization, we need to develop those mid-level leaders, right? And so we need people who, despite the adversity, despite what's going on the outside, who's going to step up? And we got to see that, right? And then, and I love that, because then we can do the leadership evaluation. So for us, that was a true blessing. Like I said, COVID is horrible. Illnesses are horrible. Pandemics are horrible. But you have to dig the good, right? Every day you got to look for the good. You got to show some gratitude, no matter what situation you're in. And in the military, it's the same thing. People who have been in combat in horrible situations, even people with severe PTSD. Some of our soldiers that came back, they still can dig the good out of some of those times that they had. And the best moments they had were with their team, right? And that, for us, that's important. When people are scared, when times are uncertain, you have your team and your leaders, and you can rely on them. And that takes the fear out of the situation. And as a leader, the fear goes away because you know that people are counting on you. You can't be worried about yourself. You got to be worried about taking care of your clients, taking care of your team. We got to stay productive. We got to protect everybody, keep everybody healthy. So for lawyers, we kind of go into overdrive, right? Where it's like, hey, we really get to step up and help the team, because sometimes, a lot of the time, we're there too much, right? We got to back off and let leaders lead. But when something like this happens, we have to step up, make tough decisions. Hey, like I said, we want to keep people productive, because if they're not, what happens? Well, they get worried. But if they're focused on a task, then that fear goes away, because they're only looking at the target immediately in front of them.
And John, one of the things that you guys have done over the years, I guess, is just have diversified sources of revenue. So across the multiple practice areas between veteran side, the criminal side, and the PI side, it seemed like that was a wise decision, considering COVID. But what type of impact did that have across the different practice areas?
Right. So, some practice areas are doing better right now than others. But we see that happen every year. This is just much more dramatic. I mean, when the courts shut down, or we have certain practice areas that, like for instance, we do a lot of our criminal side does a lot of interstate drug work. Interstate drug cases go away when people stop, when the law enforcement is not stopping cars anymore, right? So you see those things there, but then you say, okay, how can we adjust fire? And so other practice areas that are busy, sometimes we need to shift people over and say, hey, we need your help over here. I think that in the legal community, if you're a great legal researcher and great legal writer, or if you have those people on your team, I mean, it's very easy for them to adjust and go into another practice area. But yeah, diversification for us has been huge. I'm really glad we did it. I had people for a long time telling me, only do veterans law, only do veterans law. You need to give up the trial practice stuff. But it was hard, because my father had developed such a reputation as a phenomenal trial lawyer. And I had, been a trial lawyer for, it's almost 2 decades now. And I thought, no, I'm not going to give this up. I enjoy doing it. But it was smart looking back, it was smart to do. And you have to have that diversification if you're going to continue to grow and continue to take risks. And you know what? We've gone into some practice areas that didn't work out for us, and as a leader, sometimes you just have to acknowledge that failure and move on and figure out what are we good at. But limiting it to one thing, I think it takes guts. I don't have that kind of guts.
Well, what would you say? I mean, for law firm owners today, like, what do you think are some of the greatest areas of opportunity, even now?
I think some of the greatest areas of opportunity right now, number one, is talent, right? I mean, great paralegals, great attorneys. All these big firms are canceling their summer intern programs, right? Those law clerks that are at the top schools don't have options. And so, we hired 8 law clerks this summer, because we're like, wow, and it wasn't so much that was our plan, but we started getting calls and people started coming to us and saying, hey, I was supposed to go here. And I thought, wow. And I actually got we actually just hired a young lady who was going to go to one of the top 5 law schools, won't give the name, and she was going to pay a ton of money. And she said, but here's the deal, they're going to do it remotely. And I don't want to pay that kind of money. And so I'm going to defer for a year, because I don't want to, part of it is I'm going to go there and work my butt off in the classroom and get great grades. But the other part is, the networking and being able to get a job and understanding the legal community. I don't want to miss that experience. And I'm not going to pay a ridiculous amount of money to not get it. And so, we hired that person on our team. When those opportunities come up, you have to be ready. We never, ever pass on a champion.
Yeah, with everything you guys have done, I mean, one word comes to mind is definitely proactive. For the firms that have not been doing those things, I mean, I put out messaging early on warning firm owners just against the downside of, furloughing your team, pulling back on everything, and the impact that could have later on in, in months to come and years to come, not just in their reputation as a firm, the challenges that could present with hiring. What are your thoughts on that and the importance of how you respond during, any type of crisis?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you can't just go blindly cutting off limbs, right? But there's something to be said for downsizing the right way. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean, we've had some people, as COVID has gone on, they said, you know what? I really have some good performers have said, I really realized I haven't been spending enough time with my family. And maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I want to go into another career path. And you know what? That's fine. That's fine. And on the other side of things, we've really seen who stepped up, and we've said, okay, these are our top performers. And I'll tell you what, hey, guess what? The top performers are still top performers even during COVID. They still find a way to achieve results. And so then we see who isn't, right? Once again, once the tide goes out, you see who's been swimming naked, right? You see who really, your underperformers, I think, become exposed. And so for people that are really concerned about, well, we have cash problems now, then take a look. Who are your superstars? You can't afford to let a superstar go, but maybe now you're seeing that you have some people who are no longer playing all in. I mean, Warren Buffett sold all of his airline stock, right? And they said, well, why would you do that? And he says, look, I'm either all in or I'm all out. I don't do it halfway. And you're going to see that you have some people who are not all in. And if you have to, because of cash flow, you can't, keep everybody. Don't just, say, oh, well, we need 3 people in this space, 3 people. No, keep your superstars and then figure out how to build it from there.
And John, as we close out, throughout this entire experience, what would you say has been the biggest learning lesson for you?
Wow. I think the main thing that you never stop, right? You set a goal and you keep pushing. I mean, you're going to hit adversity at some point. And I've seen some firms really deal with some really tough situations, but they've overcome them. And I think the thing is, it's not going to last. Whatever the problem is, it's not going to last. And you know what? There's going to be another problem anyway. It may not be COVID. It may be an internal problem in your organization. As a leader, you're a problem solver. Doesn't matter the size of the problem. You only can control what you can control. And so fear is a good thing in that it motivates us, it gets us to act, but we can't let it overwhelm us, especially when it's about things that we can't control. So you control what you control, you step up, you help your team. Like I said, I mean, we all have learned a lot from this experience, and some people have grown, I think by leaps and bounds, and they've, in the last 90 days, they've made 3 or 4 years worth of progress, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I agree, John, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. So thank you for joining us and sharing your insights. I know that a lot of firms just, as soon as this first broke, they said, okay, it's going to be a down year. They kind of resigned themselves to whatever outcome they believe that this is just the way it's going to play out. Whereas other firms really dug in and said, all right, well, what can we do? What can we control? And as a result, I think they've not only just exposed a lot of opportunities, but we're the first ones to get there, and then have already kind of put those projects in motion that many firms, let's say, several months from now, may then see as opportunities that another firm is already like. I think you guys are expanding your space and your infrastructure and like moving into a new office. And I imagine that that's something that'll be ready, by the time like COVID's over and done with. And, what do you know? Barry Law Firm's now popped up a new office while somebody else was asleep.
Right. Well, and as you know, those things never go as quickly as we would like for them to go. And so, one of the problems that we have when we deal with this is, hey, is the fear of not getting enough done now. Because we know when we come out of this, what's going to happen. We're going to get bombarded with other issues. And so, yeah, like I said, as you know, new physical space is never easy. And these are just things we have to deal with now, but it's an opportunity to focus on them. But you're right. People are saying, oh, don't get any more space. Everybody's going to work remotely. Not true, right? People are going to crave that human interaction. People are going to want to come back to the office. When we started coming back to the office, there were some people that were concerned, but there were a lot of people who were like, hey, wait, when are we coming back? When are we coming back? Because they enjoy being around the team. And I think our clients, hey, they want that interaction. They want the face-to-face. And this is great what we're doing right here, but it's the reason why people went to Atlanta, right? I mean, it's not the same thing. And people want that human interaction. And if you're a leader, you want to be boots on the ground with your team, because that's where you're happiest, is when you've got the team with you and we're doing things together, we're winning together. Doesn't mean you can't do it from across the screen, but we could, but really, I think we gained a lot of gratitude for the people who we see day in, day out that maybe we really didn't, appreciate at the time. Now it's like, wow, this guy was the one that always, took the trash out when it got full, when our cleaning people, messed up, and he's not here. And, it's things like that you think, wow, we have had some people step up in ways that we didn't even see till after they're gone. And we're so fortunate to have a great team. and to build leaders. And as you know, and I know you've done this, I mean, you wouldn't survive this without a team of leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you find out that the team around you, you're going to be exposed either way. You're either exposed as having a great support team, or you find yourself, all alone, I guess, kind of being blinded by, success and abundance. I mean, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I think everybody believes they're a great day trader when the market's going up every day, but it's like, you don't really find out that, how good you are until you're tested. So that's where, I've experienced the same. I've seen a lot of things that surprise me in a good way. I've seen things that surprise me in not so good way as well. But at the very least, you get that clarity that I think you otherwise wouldn't get, unless there is some sort of crisis event.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, I think the real leaders step up in the crisis, and so do the great businesses. And as you know, historically, after something like this, it creates opportunity for the best of the best get great opportunity at the end of this. And there are other people that other organizations that kind of have been limping along. And I think it even goes back to people, some people with their personal finances, right? They've been living way beyond their means, and then this happens, and then they're wiped out. Well, same thing with businesses, right? They're not looking at their cash flow. They're not thinking about when that rainy day comes, because it's always going to come, and they're not prepared. And I think the other thing is too is the fear of loss, right? But it comes down to this: if everything goes away tomorrow, how are you going to feel if you didn't go down swinging and do everything, right? And so you have to look in the mirror the next day. If you wake up, right, you're the person that you have to look at and think, if everything crumbles and falls apart, did I do everything I can do, right? Because you have to be at peace with yourself. You have to go to bed at night and say, wow, I had to let 5 employees go because of COVID. Okay, did I really have to do that? Could I have done more? These are people that have family. These are people that have been on our team for years. We've made promises to take care of them, and sometimes things fall apart. But you as a leader have to look yourself in the mirror every morning and say, did I do absolutely everything to help my team succeed?
Agreed. Well, John, thank you. I agree. Always got to find a way. So I appreciate this, and I appreciate your insights. And I think when people are going to be watching this, nothing else, they'll certainly be inspired. But I don't think it's ever too late to get started, and having that mindset of always figuring it out. I think that's the only way you can make progress. Like you said, having the challenges is inevitable. Even after COVID, 19, maybe there's COVID 20. There's something else. There's always something else that's next. But the ability to adapt to those things, I think, is really the test of a great leader.
Yeah, one time, I'll share this with you. One time, when I came down to see you guys in Atlanta, I went down to Fort Benning to visit one of my old squad leaders, a great friend of mine, and he had opened several CrossFit gyms. And there's all these disabled veterans in there working out, right? And here we are sitting around getting fat on our couches, and there are people who are missing limbs, right? Who have severe disabilities, who get up every morning and still get after it and say, "Hey, what's your excuse?" Right? What's your excuse for not getting after it and going all in? Hey, you may fail, it may not work out, but at the end of the day, if you really believe in your team and yourself, you'll recover. You could always recover as long as you have a good team, as long as you as a leader are willing to take responsibility and learn from your failures.
Awesome. John, thank you.